Hello, my name is Bridger Frederick, and in this video I'm going to put out my hypothesis of why I was in fact born to do drugs. So let's talk about drugs. All drugs, but more specifically the psychedelic compounds, ketamine, LSD, MDMA, DMT, and psilocybin. I think that's how you say it. You would hope. Based on taking the time to make this video, that I would at least be able to pronounce it correctly, but time will tell. So basically, I'm a T10 paraplegic. If you don't know that or don't know who I am, I'm in a wheelchair. Can't see it no matter how much I move because I can't move back far enough. You have to take my word for it. I was in a car accident in 2019. My girlfriend and I were coming home from a beautiful brunch in Fort Collins, Colorado. A day of playing with the dogs, taking the dogs to the dog park. We were heading down a small 2-lane highway on the back roads, going about 75 miles per hour. I'm going this way. We are going this way, traveling this way. I'm driving, and another car is coming this way. They turn left in front of us because the sun was setting behind us and they just didn't see us at all. They turned left, hit the corner of the car, flipped, and right here where I flipped through the corner of that intersection, there was a telephone pole. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. My back was up against the ceiling of the truck. As the truck went through that telephone pole at 75 miles per hour, I was immediately catastrophically paralyzed and injured, and we came to a stop. I was completely conscious, didn't hit my head whatsoever, and my girlfriend's brother was on Bluetooth on the car speaker. He's talking to us, asking what happened, and all I can hear is Kelsey, my girlfriend, gurgling and, you know, making inaudible moaning noises. It sounded like her mouth was maybe filled with blood or airway was obstructed. She did end up like kind of making like more moaning noises that sounded, you know, at least like she's alive, but it was terrifying. I thought my body was cut in half at first. My legs were like draped up over the dash. My whole body, I started feeling around and my whole body was like grotesquely stretched out and shaped in a weird way. I knew right away that I was paralyzed from a certain point downwards, and also just in bad shape in general. There was I could tell a lot was going wrong inside me, and I told Kelsey's little brother who's on the phone with us, Christopher, like, get your mom, get down to Colorado, right away. We're not okay. I don't know if Kelsey's gonna be okay at all. We ended up getting cut out of the wreckage, but luckily there was a fire department probably 5 minutes away, a big rural fire department, and so we were pretty quickly cut out of the wreckage and taken away on separate stretchers, both to the same hospital, Greeley Hospital in Greeley, Colorado. I was pretty immediately life-flighted to the Swedish Medical Center because I needed a neurosurgeon, and by being at the Swedish Medical Center, it was like a gateway into the Craig Spinal Cord Rehabilitation Hospital. They're attached to each other, so really the ideal place to be sent as a spinal cord injury patient. Super lucky for that, but it was a horrifying night. I spent the whole night not knowing whether or not Kelsey was alive, whether or not she was going to be able to talk or eat or walk, or I had no idea what happened. All I knew was she was unconscious for the 10 or 15 minutes it took to get us out of the vehicle. I knew she was in bad shape, and I was in such terrible shape that, you know, I could only imagine what happened to her. I had no idea. I couldn't really reach her, and I couldn't see anything. It was completely dark by the time, or it was at least dark inside the vehicle. It wasn't dark outside when we crashed, but I remember it being very dark inside the vehicle while we're in there. But the point of the story is just a little bit background of what happened, because I know people are always curious about that. And then in the morning I get the news, the amazing news that Kelsey is all right. She has a serious brain injury, but she can walk, talk, remember mostly everything, knows who she is. Also badly broke her neck, but no spinal cord injury involvement whatsoever. She's going to be okay. She's not catastrophically fucked. And I'm going to be okay too. I'm paralyzed from the waist down, broke all the ribs on the right side of my body, fractured my back in 18 places, 3 major displacement, spinal cord injury at T10, punctured lung, ruptured, lacerated liver, but I'm going to live most likely. So that's good news on that front. End up, getting surgery on my back, and then spending a few weeks in that Swedish hospital, then being transferred to Craig Hospital. We basically lived inside Craig Hospital for 3 months. Fucking amazing facility. They are awesome. The only downside was unrelated to them, but I got a staph infection in my spine. I think I had a latent staph infection for years, untreated, and all the trauma and everything that was able to kind of take hold inside my body, but that's a story for another time. But the point is, I had this very serious chronic staph infection that they couldn't get rid of without taking the hardware out of my back. Couldn't take the hardware out of my back because it was so messed up, so I had to be on antibiotics for a while, and then also got chronically addicted because of the pain and because I already had a previous history of opiate use prior to ever being hospitalized. When I was like 16 to 18, I was the OxyContin phase, kind of the end of the OxyContin era, and yeah, I got heavily into that, and so I already had an affinity or like a predisposition to liking opiates. I kicked that addiction relatively quickly. I saw how dangerous it was, even though I was young, but was able to, was not able to resist the temptation when I was in pain. I was dealing with living in a hospital. I was dealing with the hopelessness of the sickness from this infection, and just, looking down the barrel of being a paraplegic now. All that combined and the access to the opiates, I became a raging, prescription opiate addict. I didn't think that at the time. I thought they would just help with the pain. You just don't know when you're actively in it, but I certainly was. By the time I actually got discharged from the hospital 3 months later, so I think it was February 14th, 2020, that I was actually discharged from the hospital. By then I was taking I was prescribed 3 30-milligram morphines every day on top of 6 20-milligram oxycodone pills every day, and a litany of muscle relaxers, sleep aids, all sorts of other stuff that all get you faded and get you high, basically, and also destroy your body and kill you slowly over time, and ironically make the pain much worse. But I'm just setting the stage. This is important to kind of put you into the world that I was living in when this kind of discovery and interest into psychedelics for healing spinal cord injury took place. So living in a small 800 square foot apartment, recently discharged from the hospital, coping with the reality of now living in a wheelchair and dealing with a bunch of negative health side effects related to all the injuries that I sustained. Then COVID happens, shut down everything, and shut down the rehabilitation, shut down being able to go to the hospital for anything other than emergencies, being able to see my doctors, except for over voice or video chat. And my girlfriend is a nurse. She's working frontline COVID. It's an incredibly stressful situation overall, living in this little tiny apartment, now separated thousands of miles from family, friends, who mostly all live in Idaho, where I'm from. And it was extremely stressful time, but was trying to, really trying to overcome everything the best I could. But I'm telling you, the 40 caliber pistol that was in my nightstand at all times was like a siren song calling to me every day, simply because of the pain, the overwhelming, unimaginable, constant suffering and pain. I had rhabdomyolysis from some of the antibiotics they were giving me, so my body was like, my muscle tissue was literally breaking down. Constant nerve pain. It felt like I was sitting naked on a hot stove all the time, or like being dipped into Antarctic freezing cold water, like everything below my level of injury. I mean, my ass, my balls, my legs, my feet, the bottoms of my feet, all burning and tingling, and I felt like they were falling asleep all the time. And then just crushing back pain, something to do with this infection. And also now I understand the cyclical nature of opiates were causing the pain to be much worse. They were numbing it for a while, and then you get to experience all that pain you numbed all at once when the opiates kind of wear off. So huge combination of factors, but the relief that gun was offering me was a siren song. I just wanted to escape the never-ending, crushing suffering. The only thing that stopped me from a personal perspective, from my own world, that would have been salvation. That would have been so much better than what was happening. The only thing that stopped me from doing that was the fact of how that would affect other people. It was a net positive of how it would affect me. I just would never do that to my parents and anyone that loved me, and, egotistically to my legacy. I don't want my entire life memory of me to be summed up by one single moment of weakness, that one choice. And it is all someone would remember you by. That's when, anyone that chooses to go that path, that's what you remember about them. And I would never do that to my legacy or my memory or to the people I love. I just was unwilling to do that. But wow, was it, a harrowing experience to have that seem like glorious relief. That's how much pain and suffering is in. I didn't know this much suffering existed. It was possible without death. Like, I did not know that a human being could experience this much suffering day in and day out. I thought eventually you just get used to it. You would get used to the pain. You would adapt, or you would just die. I didn't know you could feel this much pain sustained over and over and over again and struggle this much. And like, I couldn't hardly get up from bed everything was so fucking difficult. So this is the world that I'm in, and I start avidly the whole time. From the beginning, I was researching ways to potentially, increase healing of spinal cord injury, and just healing in general, because my whole body was broken, really. And every system was having problems or failing completely in some way or another, between my digestive system, my blood pressure, everything was struggling immensely. And I was looking for different ways to heal it. And I listened to a podcast with Paul Stamets, who is a mycologist, a self-trained mycologist. The reason I'm filming this video right here is with this monkey with a mushroom in his hand, is to pay homage to Paul Stamets and his recounting of the stoned ape theory. I'm not even sure it was him specifically that I heard it from originally, but it was, his retelling of it that I remember from one of the many videos that I've watched of him. And if you don't know about that, just Google it. It's interesting. I don't know how much merit there is to it, but it is worth considering. And I think you'll see why if you continue listening to me in this video. I'm going to tell you about some really interesting experiences. One where I end up hospitalized from that little mushroom that he's holding right there, and you know, some other much more positive. That was overwhelming. We'll get there. I'm not gonna do too much of a prelude, but let's fast forward to, I hear this Paul Stamets story about how he not only healed his lifelong stutter the first time that he took a large dose of psychedelic mushrooms, but more importantly, his theory or his hypothesis that taking psilocybin mushrooms, lion's mane mushrooms, and niacin or niacinamide together could potentially trigger nerve growth, or you know, increased nerve growth. Let's just say that. I was trying to sound scientific, but I'm no scientist. The nerve growth will do. And anyways, I heard that and thought, you know, I am pretty fucking desperate here, so I'm willing to try anything that might help me. And I had no aversion to psychedelic drugs. They had already shaped my life in profoundly positive ways. And we'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, let's just keep on track here. So I'm drifting a little bit. There's so many tangents to this story. And, you know, this is what I'm going to be doing for quite some time. But let's stay on track. Heard that it could potentially help with nerve growth. And so I set out to start learning everything I could about psilocybin mushrooms. I hope that's how you say it. That's how it reads. And psilocybe? I don't know. But anyways, set out to learn whatever I could. I bought all the necessary things which isn't much, necessary things to grow some mushrooms inside my house. Living in Denver, Colorado, so I'm pretty sure it was legal there, but you can certainly order the stuff either ways. And I ended up growing a batch of the psilocybe cupensis, and the strain was penis envy, which is supposedly a stronger strain than most strains. It's notoriously strong, at least if you listen to the forums about it online. And so I set to cultivating some of that. I grew a batch of it, and then eventually, as soon as some of them were ready, I decided to do kind of what I deemed like a therapeutic dosing of them. And I got the idea or the kind of structure of this therapeutic style from the beginning of a book called How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. I hope it's by Michael Pollan. I'm pretty sure it is, but a fantastic book on any account. But I'd only read like the first couple chapters of it, and that's going to be very important at some point, especially during the second dosing. I wish I'd read the book all the way through, but my ADHD tendencies, led me astray once again. But the first time I took, I think like 1.2 grams, or maybe even just a gram of this penis envy mushrooms, and I put on an eye mask and played music, laid in bed, and it was a phenomenal experience. Immediately felt really good, but the most notable thing about it was my legs started moving like crazy. I mean, absolutely uncontrollable spasms and movements. The muscles were rippling and moving everywhere below my level of injury and T10, so my belly button below. Every muscle was firing and moving sporadically. My legs were shaking, my toes were moving. I mean, just unparalleled amounts of movement. I'd never, since I'd been injured, seen my legs move anywhere near this much. So that's already incredibly fascinating, exciting. I had no idea that was going to happen. I hadn't even thought to do any, reading specifically about psychedelics after spinal cord injury. I didn't realize they would have that effect whatsoever, but it was extremely promising and exciting. And then the more important almost effect that it had was I felt my connection to like an eternal well of power that I'd always had prior to injury. I felt that connection again for the first time since being injured. I'd always, for the whole of my life before, felt like you could tap into, there was some, if you willed hard enough, there was an eternal amount of energy and power you could tap into and force yourself to do physical or mentally challenging things. And for that reason, I had infinite energy for as long as I can remember. I remember being lazy and not wanting to do it, but if I wanted to do something, I never once in my life remember running out of energy until after I had been spinal cord injured, and I just couldn't tap into that. I'd forgot it was even there. I hadn't even thought about it. And so for the first time since I had been injured, this is probably about 5 months into spinal cord injury, maybe 6 months at this point, somewhere around there. And since the first time, I really was able to tap into my personal power. I felt strong again, and I was like, I realized how much I hated myself. I hated my body, how much I'd allowed myself to hate myself. I looked at my like weird, skinny, paralyzed, kind of deformed, misshapen legs at this point. And I realized how I was completely detached from them, how I hated them, and I was embarrassed and disgusted by it. And that I didn't allow, it's not my dog stopped barking. No, maybe they're done. But anyways, I didn't allow myself to connect to my lower body. I had shunned it because I was so disgusted by it and weirded out by it. And I didn't even know these, prior to taking this dose of psilocybin mushrooms, I did not even know that I had these feelings. And I was like, for the first time, I was able to be like, no, I still love you. You're still part of me. I felt completely separated from the injured portion of my body. And I realized somehow with the introduction of the psychedelics, how toxic and poisonous and unhealing that was, to have that aversion to a part of myself, like a disgusting feeling about it. And so that was incredibly helpful to kind of learn to love the new version of myself, or start to love, or start to know that it was important, at least. I don't know if it was quite the trigger that actually made it happen, but it was at least a catalyst to, and a direction with which to go. And then so I had an amazing, chat with Kelsey for a little while, and then eventually she went to bed. And I realized that not only was, because when you're paralyzed, what I didn't realize is that also, it's everything below your level of injury. Like for me, belly button below. So the lower half of my intestines was completely paralyzed. And so was having major constipation issues from that. On top of that, I was caning large dose of opiates, which basically paralyzed your whole digestive system. Excuse me. And so was just chronically constipated, and that was having just a slew of, increased health issues as well, I'm sure, and tons of problems. That is not good. You need to excrete everything from your body, and that is certainly what this dose of mushrooms made me do. It made all my intestines feel like they were moving again, and I ended up going and using the bathroom once Kelsey fell asleep for like 2.5 hours straight, and just excreted everything from my body. It felt like an exorcism. I can't stress how much toxic feeling left my body. It was really like all of the juices, in my lymphatic system and circulation. It felt like everything was flowing again after it was just stagnating for so long. It felt incredible. And so as soon as I got done, I went out into the living room area. My legs still spasming like crazy, which I was very excited about. I thought this means something. My legs are moving. Again, even though it's completely out of control, I feel connected with my body, and like I love myself as a whole person again, whereas I kind of felt like two people separated before. And so I made like a nice comfy area on the couch, got food, everything I would need, because I know like it's gonna be hard to get up once the spasms start again. And I take my dogs out to go to the bathroom, and then I go to where my little mushroom container that's sitting on the counter, and I just pick the biggest granddaddy mushroom out of there, fresh, freshly grown, and I eat it. And I ended up just sitting on the couch I watched Zootopia and Moana, and was just like bathing in beauty and appreciation for the story, that someone took this time to write something, and all these people came together to animate it. And it made me just think of my niece and family. My niece, because she loves those two movies, and then just thinking about my family, and just I felt this rich, beautiful appreciation and love for the world that I had not felt in probably years, to be honest. And it motivated me and got me excited. I was like, even if I don't, make a living out of it or become a writer, I was like, I have to write and tell fiction stories and start writing. It was this huge just bundle and injection of motivation and happiness and purpose and clear vision for the future that had just not been there since November 4th, 2019. November 3rd? Maybe it was November 3rd. It was November 3rd, 2019. The day that I crashed, it just had not that, clearness and lust for life and excitement, just had not been there at all. So it's multifactorial. There's tons of, it's just an overwhelming positive experience. I basically stay up all night, watching cartoons or animated movies, and just feel fantastic. But I was only able to take so much of that with me moving forward. You don't, especially with my improper techniques of preparation and assimilating the knowledge or the feelings or emotional growth that I'd gained. And I just went straight back to doing whatever. I think me and Kelsey, literally when Kelsey woke up, I think we went and got McDonald's, and then I just popped a bunch of opiates and I did start writing a book that day, but a fiction book, but I was far from an evolved method of therapeutic treatment. I'm just messing around. So let's go to the second dosing. Let's fast forward. In between the first dose and the second dose, I just became way more of a drug addict. I just started using more and more opiates, and also Ambien at night to sleep, multiple types of muscle relaxers throughout the day. I was just doing anything I could to numb the pain and escape from the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical suffering that I was in all the time. And I was using these substances to just try to band-aid it, to just numb it enough so I could get on with life. And I was getting on. I did write, a good portion of a fiction novel in that period of time. It was about a month apart, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, between the first time I tried mushrooms and the second time. Well, the second time, I thought I had such a good experience. The first time, I thought to myself, certainly more is better. That's just kind of my not correct ethos for everything in life. And so I thought to myself, or decided, I've got to do the hero's dose. I've got to do the 3.5 grams penis envy mushrooms. And so that's what I ended up doing, and did the same thing laid in bed and put on an eye mask, put on a playlist, listening to music, and this experience went south in a really strange way. Like, it was really good and beautiful for a while, but then as I started really coming up on the mushrooms and the full experience hitting me, I started to just, and also like my leg spasms went crazy. I'm spasming like out of control, 100, like it was orders of magnitude more, you know, muscle activation than the 1 or 1.2 grams that I took before. I mean, it was like every muscle below my level of injury was flexing as hard as it possibly could and just vibrating. Like, just if you know, aren't injured, whatever part of your body works, it can be your arm, your fists, your leg, just imagine flexing as hard as you can. You know, you can only hold that maybe for a minute or so, and it's tiring, and as hard as you possibly can flexing. And it went on and on and on for hours. But I mean, at this point, it was just, you know, 30, 40 minutes into it, an hour into it. I don't really know. My perception of time was very loose at that point, but I was sweating, my body was heating up, and then I just started to feel like the life force leaving me. I started to feel as though I was dying, and I started to realize like I am, you know, the thought started with like I am dying. These opiates and everything that I'm taking and my lifestyle and my mentality, like I am on the trajectory of death. And I started thinking about death a lot and what it really means and how much I would miss my family and how much I would miss out and how much I'd taken for granted in life. But then I actually felt myself dying. I felt my life force leaving me. It's impossible to describe how real and intense and scary it was, and I just freaked the fuck out. I mean, I did not want to die, and I just had this immense fear. It's not at all how I would have imagined or liked to think I would react to the news that I was dying. I'd always thought about death a lot. I'd always thought that I wasn't scared of death. I'd always you know, taken loosely calculated risks that could have resulted in my death for the sake of thrill and feeling alive. And so I really believed, you know, that I had a decently fair relationship with it and would react stoically and manly if I was faced with it immediately. And that is not at all what happened. I fucking lost it. I told Kelsey, I'm dying. I don't know what to do. She's looking at me like, I think the words that I was saying, she was like not believing me, but the fear and look on my face, I think I started crying because I was going to miss my family so much. And I just fucking lost it. I mean, completely lost my mind. Never had this much fear ever in my life before, after. Nothing close to the fear and the feeling of actually leaving this world, fading behind. Like, I don't know how else to say, but it was really happening. It felt like I was dying, and started losing my mind. I ended up calling my mom at some point. I don't know what was said. Thank God. I'm sure we could ask her and she would recount it with a laugh, but basically the end of the story, or the end of this portion of the story, is I forced Kelsey to call an ambulance, and the fire department showed up. They couldn't get into the apartment, so Kelsey somehow got me loaded up and brought out to the ambulance. When I was getting loaded into the ambulance, I thought, I was like, Kelsey and the dogs, why aren't you guys coming? I was completely out of it. And as soon as they closed the door and it was like silence inside the ambulance, it was like I instantly changed. Everything changed. Like, it was like this cacophony of fear and just the fear. It was just like chaos. Everything felt like chaos. I couldn't see, I couldn't hear properly, I couldn't understand, I could feel myself dying. As soon as those doors closed, and this like paramedic looked at me with like this kind of knowing, like, you all right there, buddy? It was like everything went silent for the first time in my entire life. If only I had finished reading the How to Change Your Mind book by Michael Pollan before this had happened, I would have understood more what was going on, that I was having like an ego death experience, and that silencing of everything was the first time my ego had ever shut the fuck up in my entire life. And I thought it was like I was living in this amazing simulation, and I saw everything was beautiful, everything was quiet. I could hear things, but I could hear everything, rather, like all the actual noises, auditory noises in the world, people talking, and there was no fear of anything. I still 100% believe that I was going to die. There was nothing that could have convinced me otherwise. But all of a sudden, I was just like, oh, this is what my thought process was like, oh, this is what happens right before you die. You basically get God vision. I mean, it was like having the ability to see and know everything all at once. It was phenomenal. I could look at a person and they would like age backwards down to when they were a baby, and I like could know things about them and the way they felt and the way they were thinking that are impossible to actually know. And believe me, if someone told me this prior to having experienced it, I wouldn't believe. I would be like, that was your perception of what was happening. But it was not that. I mean, it was really tapping into something phenomenal. And it all started in that moment of everything being shut off, and I saw that paramedic. I saw her laugh and smile, and I was so grateful that someone was there to help me. And it was just this immense feeling of gratitude, and like, the world was such a beautiful place. And that's when the silence happened. So I go taken to the hospital, and it actually turned out to be it turned out to be necessary. I needed medical attention, because I couldn't, so everything below my level of injury was spasming, including my urethra. And when you're paralyzed, you have to intermittent cath, so it was impossible for me to pee or get a catheter in. And it actually took numerous nurses, embarrassingly enough, took numerous nurses and a doctor and everyone to even be able to insert a catheter in me. And I ended up pissing out like 3 liters of fluid, which is obviously, it was a dangerous situation. It was irresponsible and, unimaginably dangerous to take that large dose of psilocybin mushrooms without the correct knowledge behind it. So anyways, ended up spending a few hours in the hospital. There was never a time while, for the first 3 or 4 hours, despite everything doctors, nurses, anyone said to me that could convince me that I wasn't dying. I could literally feel the life force leaving my body, could feel myself dying. And meanwhile, I had like this incredible vision just to kind of show how serious they thought it was. They put me in the dark and put the Discovery Channel on the TV, and watching the Discovery Channel, I would see like, a scene out in, a landscape in the ocean or something. Every different landscape that would pop on, I could watch the entire like universe rewind through all the way down to when that was like magma hundreds of millions of years ago, and see like different eras, like the Jurassic period. And I mean, it was things that I didn't even know existed or have any knowledge about, and I would see them like rewind through. It was unfathomable. Like, it is impossible to explain. I wouldn't believe it if I was hearing it from someone else, but I do understand it now, and I will get there, my theories on it and what it means. But basically, eventually, that goes on for a couple hours, and then I feel like finally, like, the life force is empty. I am actually gonna die now. And I just accepted it fully, and like had this warm embrace of just love and light and gratitude. And like, I was deeply apologetic but not ashamed. I was just so sorry that I hadn't taken advantage of all the love that was offered to me and all the people in the world around me who meant the most to me. And I was just, I finally just faded into blackness and disappeared from this reality for all intents and purposes. It really did feel like I had died and I was just in this love soup. And then some undisclosed amount of time later, I don't think it was very long, 5, 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, I just woke up stone cold sober, realizing that I'm like in this hospital room in downtown Denver hospital. I heard it before and didn't really, I thought about it and thought about it immensely. But like now, like rather than just feeling sorrow and love and wanting to help this homeless guy that was in the next room, just screaming, I was like, this is not nice to listen to at all. There was a homeless guy that was drunk, combative, like hurt a nurse, and he was like tied down in the room next door. And like, I was like, this is terrible. Like, why am I here? What the fuck is wrong with me? This is embarrassing. I need to get out of here. So went into kind of escape mode, and I don't have a wheelchair. I literally can't leave the bed that I'm in. They don't bring your wheelchair in the ambulance with you. So I sit around for, at this point it's like 4 in the morning. I sit around for a little while, text Kelsey, she calls me and says, I'll come pick you up in a couple hours, like 6, 7 in the morning, she picks me up. And once again, my power of ignorance and, youthful stupidity and just slow learning ability, I thought to myself, that was really incredible. That was amazing. I tried to explain it, couldn't explain it really, couldn't understand what happened. I did feel the best I'd ever felt in my entire life. I've had the least amount of background noise that I'd ever had, the most tranquility and peace that I'd always had this static underlying anxiety, and it wasn't gone, but it was dampened. It was a little tiny bit quieter, and that was amazing. But I didn't know what to do with anything that happened. So what I do, pretty sure we went and got, like, it's COVID, so you can't go to any other restaurants besides fast food. Pretty sure we went and got some fast food, made sure, when Kelsey's coming to pick me up, like, hey, make sure you bring my oxycodone, even though I had all that intense experience. I knew it was killing me. Today wasn't the day. I wasn't about to, go into withdrawals and everything today. I'll deal with that later. But it was the seed. It planted the seed, and it made me, 100% confident that I would quit using this drug. I just wasn't ready to do it yet. But from that moment forward, that was the catalyst. That was the seed that was planted, where it was like, this is killing me. This cannot, continue to be a remedy for the pain. I have to figure out another solution. So that was that was a positive experience and thing that came along with it. But the point is there's a right way to do this. And the point is also, the real point is, hey, this is interesting. This is an overwhelmingly positive thing that I was improperly using, which led to it not being anywhere near as effective as it could have been, being even quite dangerous, and also, just wasting the resources, the valuable resources of, an ambulance, fire department, a hospital. It was just incredibly irresponsible. And I thought that story illustrated both the potential dangers and some of the potential upside of using psychedelics. But what it did absolutely forge and steel inside my mind is that there is something to this. This is important. This needs to be researched. This needs to be looked at. There is something here when it comes to healing spinal cord injuries and complex neurological dysfunction of many different kinds. And it's just, there is a lack of information out there. And not only do I want to be a part of adding to the lexicon, if that's the correct word, the lexicon of knowledge about this. This video, the whole purpose of this is my calling card. This is me putting out there to the world saying, hey, I think this is important. I want to be deeply involved in the furthering of the knowledge in this space. If you are a person who also wants to, investigate this, or if you have knowledge, if you're already investigating this, or you know of doctors or researchers or information or websites that are relevant that I could learn more about this, this is my calling card. This is me putting it out there to you. Like, let's get together, let's start a community, let's figure this out more and more as time goes on. The reason that I'm even putting this out there now is because a separate experience that I had just a couple weeks ago using the drug ketamine completely shifted my entire worldview, everything that I think is possible from an individual perspective. It transformed me as a person in, a single second. And I realized that the feeling I had when I was the first time I ever smoked marijuana, from at 14 years old or something, the very first time I ever smoked, I thought to myself, like, I'm born to do this. I thought it was fascinating. I loved the idea that you could intake a substance and it would alter the way that you saw things. It would change what you were capable of seeing. I was fascinated by that. I did not understand how it was possible that something we could ingest would change your beliefs about something, and then either after it wore off, that sometimes that belief would persist, and sometimes you would relapse or go back, snap back into the convenient reality that you had before. And I continued to think that was fascinating throughout my teenage years, not just with marijuana. That my introduction to marijuana, it really was a gateway drug in the sense that it opened up my world. I wanted to try every drug and understand every drug and see what their potentials were and what they could do. I had an overwhelmingly positive experience until that experimentation led me to try OxyContin. And that was, it was incredible how fast I became heavily addicted to that. It was a whirlwind addiction. I think, from not using it at all to heavily addicted 6 months later to clean, and pretty much clean until after injury at 8 months later. I realized very fast that this isn't what I like about drugs. This is deleterious. This is negative. This is not something that I use to gain control of myself. This is something that gains control of me. It was completely different experience than I had had with marijuana and psychedelics, and even drugs like cocaine, which was like the social lubricant. Not addicting to me. I just didn't find it to be addicting because it has so many negative side effects. But the point is, from the very first time I ever tried drugs, I thought, this is something overwhelmingly good. I'm going to do this forever. I was born to do this. I actually thought this was my purpose in life. And then had some negative experiences with it, and spent huge swaths, years and years of my life 100% sober, and realized that all of the the beauty in influencing your your perspective and stuff with external substances, none of that exists if you're not at the appreciating life without any exogenous substances being put inside. You have to have sobriety to enjoy non-sobriety. It's everything in life is balance. And I realized that at some point, and then, kind of just tried to find a balance between those two things. But anyways, the point is, at this music festival, Shambhala Music Festival in Canada that I was at a couple weeks ago. I was taking a relatively large amount of ketamine and reunited with an old friend. I won't mention her name on here right away, just in case she doesn't want me to like be publicly talking about her doing ketamine. I didn't consult her beforehand, but basically met up with an old friend, and there was just something happening where we were both in a state of like overwhelming love and happiness, gratitude, and like mutual appreciation, where that catapulted, it did something fascinating to me, where the two people existing, from what my understanding is, like both being in brain heart coherence and having this gratitude at the same time, with the, you know, addition of this exogenous substance, this ketamine, like created this unfathomably just electric frequency and state of just love and healing. And I did not know this level of bliss, happiness, tranquility, just emptiness of time and space. I did not know it was possible. I had read about it in this book called Supernatural by Joe Dispenza, where he describes a series of meditation practices to build up to this state or this frequency, but I'd never experienced it before. And it was like a switch flicked in my mind forever, of just like that thing that I described, where the ego or the, you know, the anxiety dampened, it just almost silenced it completely. And now it's like, since then, for a couple weeks now, I have full control of that. I can silence it. It was because in this moment, like in this moment in time where she was reflecting so much love back to me and so much gratitude and everything, and it was like this kind of perfect, you know, combination of things. It wasn't like I just arrived at this because of the ketamine. This was also months and months of, you know, years of self-work and intense discipline in advance and research and knowledge accumulation that all kind of accumulated in this moment of realization that everything that had been, you know, holding me back in life, stopping me from, you know, achieving the things I wanted to achieve, including healing spinal cord injury 100%, and being able to run, bike, snowboard, hunt, fish, play with my kids, you know, have kids normally. Everything that I wanted to do is being stopped from this like singular belief that I had that I wasn't worthy of love. I wasn't deserving of love. Had things, you know, a series of minor, like small t traumas, like not serious traumas. That's the most important thing to remember, is I don't even know what happens when you have like massive serious trauma happen to you as a child. I did not have that. Yeah, I'm not being humble or anything. I just had a few minor things happen that I internalized really negatively. And it made me believe that I didn't deserve love, that I was inherently evil, that I didn't deserve to heal, that I didn't deserve, you know, that I needed to be punished for something. Like I just had these beliefs and I didn't even know they were there. And then it just unlocked all of that. I finally saw it for the first time, and this is my layman's description of it. I don't know this. Anyone who says they know anything is probably not a person to listen to. My perception of this moment was that we were all one single being, like created from one thing, and we were extensions of that, and we were, you know, part of this collective, connected imagination. And so we were all the same thing. We're all, you know, reflections of each other. And I felt like we're all family and we're all one. And just that feeling, it wasn't like knowledge is the wrong word. It was, but no, that knowledge is the right word. It wasn't just a feeling. It was a knowing that, even if that's, you know, only a fraction of the truth. It's not, it's not the full story, but that knowing that we were all connected in togetherness and the web of everything, it changed me forever in the most positive way. And it's not something that I can not talk about because it's inconvenient, and I might incur judgment for talking about the use of psychedelic drugs. I don't give a shit. This is overwhelmingly positive and important. I'm not suggesting that it is for everyone or that it's a blanket solution to the problems. I just think it's a tool that needs to be explored more specifically for neurological and spinal related injuries. And yeah, this is my introduction into being one of the people that does that. I want to go to the MAPS conference. I want to start making really in-depth videos and about different substances and what their potential use cases are, and what the whole gamut, the good, the bad, the ugly, the great, all of it. And I want to connect with you, whoever you are. I want to hear about your experiences. I want to hear about anyone you know that has had positive experiences with healing, in whether it be emotional or physical healing from using these substances. I want to know, especially if you know of any doctors or researchers or anyone with an immense amount of knowledge that would be willing to sit down and talk with me or point me in the right direction in any way. I'm a sponge for knowledge, and this is my bat signal in the form, that can be our bat signal out there saying, let's talk about this. Let's figure out how to make this 1%, it might only be 1% of the total therapy needed to take someone from, complete severe spinal cord injury like I have to a fully functional 100% healed human being. This might only be 1% of that equation, but I think it's a critical 1%. That is my hunch. I think it is very important part of the equation. I think that, tons of walking exercises, neuroplasticity, functional electrical stimulation, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, spending tons of time in nature, grounding, talk therapy, trauma release therapy, massage, acupuncture, Ayurveda. I think it all is 1%, 1%, 1%. I think the real way to heal complex injuries, such as spinal cord injury, but I think the equation is going to be applicable to basically all human healing. If you can heal something as serious and deleterious as complex neurological stuff, you can basically heal anything, is my opinion. So this is important work, and I think all of these things are going to kind of add up to be 1%, and the 1% avenue that I'm going to be going down for a while is how to most effectively incorporate psychedelic drugs into that healing journey. Is that microdosing once every 3 days? Is that macrodosing or taking a large amount under therapeutic conditions every month or two, or every 6 months, or is it every 3 days? We have no idea what the most efficacious therapeutic way to use these things are. We don't know what the consequences of misusing them are. We don't know anything yet. We know some stuff. I shouldn't say anything, but we don't know enough. That's the bottom line. There's so many questions that need to be answered. Is there combinations of therapies that make this, way more effective? Do you need to take a large dose of, LSD and then sit inside of a hyperbaric oxygen chamber for the whole 8 hours with some pulsed electromagnetic field therapy on you? Is there certain frequencies of music that you can listen to? Do you need to listen to, 436 hertz Buddhist chanting? There's so many tests and things that can be done. And I just want to explore all of it, and I want to do it with you. So, yep, we'll just keep keep your eyes open. This might be, you might be watching this on the website. If that is the case, then welcome to the website. Please explore, learn everything you can about us, and reach out. If you're seeing this on YouTube, then I'll have released this very early, so just stay tuned. We're going to get a website set up, we're going to get social media set up, we're going to build a community of people who are interested in exploring this topic with us. And it's been an hour. If you made it this far, you're awesome. Thank you so much. I love you, and yeah, let's explore together. Thank you so much, as always, for being here, and this is me signing out for now.